So just like that, preseason testing is over and we are now just 2 weeks away from the start of the season and our very first Grand Prix at Bahrain ahead of the 2021 season. And I must be honest, although there was a lot of skepticism going into this season thinking that Mercedes were just going to run away with it, and of course we still don't know how the season is going to pan out, certainly off the back of what we've seen over the last 3 days, although I don't want to speculate too much, although guys, you know, it's me, so I'm going to speculate, it definitely is looking like it's going to be a lot more closer up front, fighting for the title between the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes. And when we talk about the midfield, we've seen teams like McLaren and Alpine have very solid running, but we've also seen some surprises with teams like Alfa Romeo and Alpha Tauri, so there's definitely a lot to be excited for, and I'm going to do a bit more content later in the week talking about some of those midfield teams. But certainly the biggest story has been Red Bull and just how strong they are looking ahead of the brand new season. So for me, the big question going into 2021 now for Red Bull is, are they going into the season as the title favorites? Now, when it comes to mileage and lap time, Red Bull managed to complete 369 laps, which is the 7th highest on the field. 203 of those were done by Max Verstappen and 166 of those were done by Sergio Perez, and they also set the quickest time on the field with a time of 1 minute 28.960, but that was only on the C4 tyre, which is not even the softest compound out of the Pirelli range. So even in that scenario, there was still a decent amount of time that Red Bull could have found if they put one of their drivers on the C5 softest compound of tyres. Now, there's no doubt that whilst the headline times and mileage are very decent for Red Bull, and certainly there are a lot of positives that can be taken from them, which we'll talk about in a minute, they did have a few little problems and niggles there and there, but nothing really major like the likes of Aston Martin or even Mercedes. So let's really quickly talk about the drivers, because in terms of Max Verstappen, there's not really too much to say. He was in the zone every single time he got out of the car. The only drama he had, as I mentioned earlier, was a few little scruffy moments during the first day when it was really sandy, and I think we can kind of let him off for that. But once we got down to the final day of preseason testing, I mean, he was absolutely on it. He was trying different lines. If anything, it looked like he was just messing around, and the car was absolutely on rails. But we're going to talk about the car in just a second. So Max is going to go into the season, I think, with a lot of confidence. For the first time, he had relatively a trouble-free winter testing. It wasn't like last year where he had constant spins and also some reliability issues. And I think, although he might not admit it, looking at where Mercedes are and looking at also the relative gaps to teams like McLaren and Alpine and Alpha Tauri, he knows that Red Bull are still the team to beat in terms of comparing it to the midfield. And again, I think going into the season, he's just going to have a lot of confidence from the team, from the car, off the back of these last 3 days, to really capitalize from the very beginning of the season. It doesn't look like Red Bull are going to have to spend 6 or 7 races trying to catch up. They really do look like they're going to start on the front foot. Now, when it comes to Sergio Perez, I think there's also a lot of positivity and a lot of good things that he can take away from preseason testing. I think, like many people predicted, like myself, he definitely looks much more comfortable in the RB16B than, say, Alex was last year or Pierre Gasly was in 2019, which is a massive positive. And I think that comes off the back of Red Bull perhaps having a bit of pressure lifted off their shoulders, and also the fact that their car definitely seems to have taken a step up compared to last year. Now, Sergio himself was able to do quite a bit of mileage in the car, nothing crazy like Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo, but nevertheless, he did say that the team did a great job with helping him get used to the RB16B, because you've got to remember, it isn't that easy to just jump into a Red Bull. We've seen it time and time again. It is a tricky car to drive, even though it has improved in 2021, and you've also got to remember that he's also trying to get used to a completely different concept of car that he was using at Racing Point. The Red Bull is a high-rate car at the back, and when you compare it to the Racing Point, which is much more similar to the Mercedes, that was a much more lower rate car. So overall, of course, it was going to be a very steep learning curve for Sergio Perez, but overall, when you look at the mileage, when you look at the times that he managed to set as well, going quickest at the end of the morning session, which is a very big positive, and also just what he's been saying in interviews, the fact that the team have done a great job to not only sort out problems, which is a very important part because winter testing was never going to be flawless, and also the way they've been trying to help him to get used to to the car in terms of what he can do with his driving style, there is a lot of positivity and a lot of confidence that I get from Sergio Perez from all of his interviews that he's done. So I think that is a very important part, the fact that he's already getting used to the car, and also the fact that Red Bull themselves as a team just seem to have embraced him. So that is just a very, very big positive. They're going to clearly have a lot to look forward to going into this season with both of their drivers, and certainly Max Verstappen looking already on the money. But of course, only time will tell, and it will all depend on what they're able to do in the first race at Bahrain. So now let's talk about the car, because outside of the drivers feeling great, outside of the team sending a lot of positive messages and just looking like a very confident team heading into the new season, the RB16B clearly looks like a massive step up from last year. And I mean, watching it on track, especially in the hands of Max Verstappen, what's really crazy is that, of course, a lot of people say that you can't look too much into the times because we don't know fuel loads and what kind of program they are running. But at the end of the day, every single team at one point is going to want to do a qualifying run, because you don't want to just do long runs and hiding your pace and doing sandbagging. You need to give your drivers a chance to feel the cars on low fuel during a quali run, and certainly that Red Bull looked absolutely planted. As I mentioned earlier, at points Max Verstappen was almost messing around with it, just going wide and still setting purple sectors, and I think it was just a sign of how much confidence, or how much more confidence he has in this car than the one that he had last year. And it was incredible to see the fact that he managed to top the times and not even use the softest compound when the likes of Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, when the conditions were at their absolute best, was not able to even get within 8 or 9 tenths of the Red Bull on a softer compound. So I think that's what's going to be really great for Max, and what he's going to have in his pocket heading into Bahrain, that he knows that they haven't even extracted the full amount of performance in that Red Bull, and he also wasn't really able to get that perfect lap with every single sector being absolutely perfect. So not only do they have more pace in their pocket, but they also have a car that is clearly much more compliant. And when you look at Sergio Perez, he was echoing a lot of the same sentiments, in the sense that he was able to get on top of the car a lot quicker, and in general the car just looks so stable, both in the corners but more importantly on the exits, which is something that we saw in a lot of teams struggling in terms of putting the power down, like the likes of Mercedes. And I think that is a very big positive, and the fact that Red Bull might be going into the new season with possibly the best car at the moment. So, when it comes to Red Bull, I think it's fair to say that they are going to be extremely happy with how these 3 days of testing have gone. But of course, we have to talk about Mercedes. Now, I've been trying to wrap my head around in terms of how to rate them, because I really resisted doing a video saying that this is the end of Mercedes and that is it, what's happened to them, because I do believe that whilst the car definitely looks on a knife edge, and a lot of people might be thinking that this is just Mercedes sandbagging, I genuinely think that something is not quite right. Whilst I don't think they're in absolute catastrophe and it's time to panic, they definitely did not extract anywhere near the full performance of that car. I mean, even at the hands of Lewis Hamilton, right at the end of preseason testing when the conditions were perfect, on the C5 tyre, the softest tyre, something was not right. And whilst people might say that the car was heavy on fuel, as I said, at some point the team had to have a quali run, and at no point did the car look 100% settled and on rails. It just did not look like the Mercedes of 2020 that we know. Although the car had a good amount of grip on the low speed corners, and in terms of turning into the corner, it was able to rotate quite nicely, it was during the mid part of the corner where there was just a really strange amount of understeer and it seemed to be sliding away, and then on the exit of corners it was constantly oversteering, and you could just see Lewis Hamilton again on the C5 tyre during what should have been qualifying runs. He kept having to catch really big moments of oversteer and sliding around. It just did not look great on the exit of corners, and despite Mercedes being super secretive with their floor and what they've been doing over the winter break, I think that although they are not in trouble and it's definitely not time to sound the alarm just yet, I think Mercedes are definitely going in on the back foot and are going to be playing more of a Red Bull role in terms of trying to catch up and understanding over the past 3 days from all of the data that they have collected what exactly needs to be done in terms of development and setup changes ahead of Bahrain to make sure that that rear end is a little bit more stable. So what are the biggest takeaways when you compare Red Bull and Mercedes? Well, definitely Mercedes do need to do some catching up. I think there's obviously a lot of people that fear kind of falling into the trap of, are Mercedes in trouble or are they just sandbagging? But we've seen this before by Mercedes, even just a year ago, and that is not what's going on right now. When you watch the onboards of the car, just the body language of the car, and just the way Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas are struggling to drive it show that something is not quite right. Even if it turns out that Mercedes have been sandbagging and trying to subvert expectations, I think more than anything else, Red Bull, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez have to go into 2021 with something on their shoulders and a bit of confidence, knowing that they have Mercedes on the back foot, and they need to make sure that they use that confidence to have a strong start from the very first race. I think there is a lot of positives for Red Bull to take, but when it comes to the question of are Red Bull now the title favourites heading into the new season, I'm going to say yes, I do think that they are, and what's more important than anything else is that Red Bull need to have that confidence, they need to have that swag, and they need to have that mojo of being the team to beat, which they haven't been for such a long time, and they need to go into the new season and get off to a great start from the very first race. And looking at what Max Verstappen was able to do in Abu Dhabi, looking at how strong Sergio Perez finished the 2020 season, and how good and strong and confident both of them look right now after preseason testing, I do think that Red Bull are the team to beat, and it's going to be very interesting and hopefully very spicy in terms of the title battle to see what Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas are going to be able to do to come back and hopefully give us a great title battle in 2021. So guys, there you go. That is my thoughts on Red Bull after preseason testing. It's great to see them have a good preseason, and it's also a little bit also good to see Mercedes kind of on the back foot and having to play the catch-up game, because are we finally going to get Verstappen versus Hamilton? I mean, that would just be absolutely incredible. So yeah, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below, guys. Do you think Red Bull are going to be the team to beat in 2021 now ahead of preseason testing? And also guys, just a quick plug, I recently went on the Sports Talk podcast. It was a really great video that we made, me and Jack, and yeah, it was just so much fun. We talked about YouTube, Formula One, some pretty hot takes as well, and yeah, it was a whole load of fun. So definitely go and check that out as well if you want a bit more of an extended view ahead of the 2021 season. Again, that will be linked at the top of the description, and a huge shout out and thank you to those guys for having me on. So yeah, check it out, link will be at the top of the description. Anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.